You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series. Welcome back to the final round of Day 1 of the Season 4 Invitational. We are in Losers Bracket Round 4, and 8 players still have matches to play today. The winners will move on to Day 2 in Top 8. The losers will be eliminated in Top 12. Our matchup for you today is a player that we have not yet seen on stream, Babamavus versus Bradykin, who we saw a few rounds ago. Bradykin, of course, on Vodacombo, and Babamavus on Xenon Killers.
Yeah, the Xenon Killers deck is a pretty fascinating list. I think we've seen this once before, but you have that awesome setup with the Twin Brood Sauropods and the Dark Returns. You have all of the cool interactions between Beast Colors Amulet and Instigator and all of the different Overwhelm units that you're running. I think Xenon Killers has a really solid opening strategy against Voda Combo. Meanwhile, Voda Combo is the ruler of the late game. If it can actually get the combo off, it'll just play out unit after unit after unit while drawing card after card after card. It's such an insane amount of value that if you don't find a way to stop the combo before it happens, then you're in a lot of trouble. So we will see whether or not Babamovs can race down Bradykin or even just outvalue him on those copper conduits.
Yeah, well, the problem with this is that unlike some of the other decks he's facing, the Vodacombo deck does have access to a ton of silences, which are always annoying for Xenon decks to face. And his units don't line up too well against, Sandstorm Titans and Mystic Ascendants of things are at least as big as his Twin Brood Sauropods. So then, like you said, it becomes a question of velocity. Who can be the one that gets ahead first?
Yep, getting any access to like the early setup here is really, really solid. Basically, if you can put down those Argenport instigators early for Babamavs, that seems like one of the key things to stick early on. Babamavs does have a sizable amount of extra draw and card advantage in this form of Friendly Wisps and Dawnwalkers, but you really have to navigate that carefully if you want to keep those Dawnwalkers and Friendly Wisps alive against silences. It's possible to do. Dawnwalkers with Predator's Instinct can avoid silences if they are played at appropriate times, and Friendly Wisps can be played before a Sandstorm Titan to draw cards, but that limits the deck's mobility and scope a little bit. So if you're forced into a situation where you have to play either of those units and they get silenced, then things can go south really quick.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going down into the game. Babamavus has a reasonable hand here. He's got turn 3 Dawnwalker, turn 4 Titan, whereas Bradykin has a hand with a couple Titans of his own.
Yep, both players running out the big dudes means that it's going to be sort of board stall-like. Babamavs does have Annihilate somewhere in his deck, but he really doesn't want a board stall situation, so this hand probably favors Bradykin to start.
Yeah, Dawnwalker's pretty good, but if it's just walking into a Sandstorm Titan, it's not really going to be able to push through. And this Copper Conduit, unlike with a couple other matchups, you can't really just sort of slam it down on 2 or 3, as you really do need it to be a large threat.
Kind of has to be big. Bradykin gets to play down Voice of the Speaker if he wants to. He can also wait until next turn. Either way, it guarantees that he's going to be drawing power through the next couple of turns, and that's very, very solid. Babamav's leading with the Friendly Wisp. It is silenceable, but there hasn't been any sort of pause for Desert Marshal, so I think he feels safe in trying to secure that card draw.
Yeah, he's valuing the draw over the Dawnwalker's ability to get in there for damage.
That could end up being good for him in the long run. Having access to the Annihilate means that he can now push through the Sandstorm Titan, and he will be able to Dark Return some pretty solid setups. I think Dawnwalker's just not a very good card for him in this matchup in general. It's not big enough to push through almost anything that Bradykin is running, so even if it doesn't get silenced, it's really not providing a lot of value.
Well, then I would expect him to play the second Friendly Wisp here. Decides to go for the Dawnwalker. If he can find another removal spell for the second Sandstorm Titan, he could be in very good shape.
Yeah, there are some good options for him here. If the Sandstorm Titan gets killed, he gets to Dark Return it back, and then he'll have a good setup with Friendly Wisp. From here, the question of what he wants to play is actually a really interesting one. He could attack with Dawnwalker and just try and get some value out, or he could play the Friendly Wisp down and try to push for that card advantage. Again, silences are a bad deal, but he's already got one unit down that's kind of a problem if it gets silenced, and there hasn't been one yet, so why not play the second?
Bradykin is a little bit power flooded, but here we see, like you said, not holding on to that friendly wisp means that he's not able to get full value out of it.
Yep.
And the board has stalled, and Obamavos is rapidly losing velocity.
Stalls do favor the Voda combo deck here, but Copper Conduit might end up being a big enough unit to make a difference. As a 6/6 that also can't be effectively silenced in Bradykin's current hand, it can push through for a decent amount of damage, and if it dies, it just comes back bigger and better.
Yeah. And here we see the Twin Brutes, so looks like we'll be pushing in. I don't think that Bradykin will trade here. No, he does. Interesting.
But Bob can now make a really big Copper Conduit, although what Bradykin is doing is essentially just saying, I've got the Vanquish, so maybe you should play something else. It's possible that Bob Miles might not go for the super large conduit. I think it's probably the right play considering what Bradykin's hand has, so we'll
I,
see if it comes back.
I think you do go for it here. You need something large to start pushing a bunch of damage through, because the longer you let your opponent sit around, the more trouble you're going to be in. And if that...
Finds
Go
the
ahead.
Desert Marshal, so that silences the Overwhelm and prevents him from taking too much damage, but he still hasn't found Vanquishes or Harsh Rules.
Well, if the longer that the Marshal survives, the more dangerous the threat of the ultimate becomes. And it's not unrealistic. It's only 3 turns away. So the Desert Marshal presumably silencing the Overwhelm, and then just that can be chump blocked for a while. And Bradykin does have some health to work with.
Bob Moss can threaten Vara's favor here, but Bradykin is not fooled. He blocks the Dawnwalker and chooses not to take any damage from that particular setup. At this point, Bob Moss can now play Sauropods and Rhinarchs. He's got a lot of things to attack in with, and he probably knows there's no Harsh Rule, but Bradykin can still Parliament to get some blockers down.
He's going to get 3 here, though, that's a lot of 4/4s.
A lot of 4/4s to be sure, especially when you're playing other small tokens down to block the big stuff. Like that 13/13 is a nasty unit, but there's just so much on Bradykin's side at this point.
No, there's another conduit that's going to come down, but Bobamovas is sort of priced into attacking here. The longer if this game goes 2 turns longer, he's going to lose all of his units.
He's not in good shape. He does lose the Sandstorm Titan here, which gives the Owls the possibility to push through. But he definitely just needs to kill that Iron Thorn, and there's no current way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Still, Bradykin's hand is all power, so he's got his whole hand in play.
Yeah, we see Voice of the Speaker probably going down pretty quick here. So there's not going to be like a crazy Voda combo here, unless he decides to take out the Owl, which seems pretty reasonable as well. Overall, like 13 damage, just blocked, everything blocked out, but an 8/8 conduit bringing back the Dawnwalker means he's still pressing for a pretty significant amount of damage.
And that's not really going to do it, the Voice of the Speaker. So if there is a removal spell for this Martial Ironthorn, Bomovos can do it. Otherwise, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, he's going to get board wiped here. He can't play onto this board since obviously there is going to be a power. He might as well attack with everything since he's going to lose it all, but Bradykin's actually not representing lethal off of Ironthorn at the very least. So Babalavs can still go Twin Brood Sauropod into Annihilate next turn and maybe get some decent value. With the Conduit being an 8/8, he does present some amount of damage. Like, there is just going to be at least that much damage on the board. So 8 to Bradykin puts him at 7. That is a reasonable amount of health. There are ways that Baba Mouse could pull this out. An Argenport Instigator means that a Harsh Rule or... Not going to be a Harsh Rule, so there's no point in playing the Instigator. Got to be Ironthorn here.
You can't play anything. And I don't know about that.
Just assume that Bradykin doesn't have the power. Like, there's not a lot of good outs either way, so it's hard to say which is better, but looks like he's going to hold it.
I don't think your hand is better if your opponent doesn't have power in hand. Your outs, I mean. So I think you just play like they have nothing.
Yep, we see the ultimate. That does kill both conduits. At this point, Babamovs is looking for a Dark Return and a Predator's Instinct, and that would just end the game. But if he can't find both, so it's
I think just the
going to be
Dark
pretty
Return is the
difficult.
start.
And Dark Return would be a start. Sandstorm Titan's not bad. Argenport Instigator's pretty good here, although it does cause him some level of strife. And Ironthorn is exhausted, so Bradykin has to find something new. He finds another
Like a
Ironthorn,
second
which
Iron Thorn.
that's not bad, especially when you're following it up with a Mystic Ascendant.
Alright,
Refilling
so
his
now
hand.
there's a 1-turn clock, and it's just not going to happen.
It's not looking good, yeah. Baba Maz from here is dead to Ironthorn explosions. He could kill the second Ironthorn with an Annihilate, but he didn't draw it, so that's the game.
Mm-hmm. So just was never able to find a removal spell or even a Vera's Favor to take down that Ironthorn and couldn't get out in front.
Yeah, stalled on momentum. The Annihilates are a really good card, but he's only got 3 of them in the deck, and there's far more than 3 threats that he has to deal with, including Sandstorm Titans, Ironthorns, and Mystic Ascendants, of which all of them were seen. We didn't see a Harsh Rule there. We didn't need to. There wasn't really any reason for that deck to be Harsh Ruling. I think, actually, you could even slide out the Harsh Rules and just have a better game, since you're developing bigger units against your opponent's stuff.
So looking now at the sideboard, Babamovus does not have the best hand here. Sabotage can pull out like a Harsh Rule or something, but it's not going to help him get its units through. Decay, again, not really going to hit too much. Plague, obviously not what you want. Scorpion Wasp is nice on defense, but you really don't want to ever be on defense, and Healer's Cloak isn't going to do it. Steward of the Past is probably his only good sideboard option, but his sideboard is really not set up for this matchup.
Yeah, it's nice to hit the Sabotages so that you can pull out the Harsh Rules, but that's about it. I wouldn't even really want to run those just because you want to be the beatdown in this game, and basically you just kind of have to play as though the Harsh Rules aren't there.
Well, the problem is that the Harsh Rules weren't even there in Game 1. Vodacombo relying entirely on its units in the main board. Now they can come in, and now you're left with more of a question about whether or not it's worth looking for them, or if you need threats instead.
Oh yeah, there were never any in the main.
The 5 power units just don't line up well against Sandstorm Titan or Mystic Ascendant, and that's just such an issue.
It's a pretty rough deal. So we see that the Zedon Killer's deck still has a chance. It's still got to be the beatdown, but it looks like the Combra's got better sides. So from there, it's going to be trickier. It's going to be an uphill climb.
Yeah, it looks like the players are just doing the final touches on their matches. I'm happy to report that Bradykin has approximately 250,000 shift stones, so he's probably ready for set 2.
Sounds pretty good. It's looking like you might be able to craft a few legendaries.
Yeah.
1 or 2.
1 or 2.
Of a pretty sizable setup. Looks like he hasn't played any of the events though. I don't see any packs.
Well, he's only got 4,000 gold. So all the other matches are still in play. So we haven't missed any results yet, and we are going into Game 2 of the final round of Day 1. It's a lot of numbers, but we're not done yet.
Yeah, from Babamal's perspective, we see a slow hand. That's not what he's looking for. He does find Annihilate, which is not bad, and Dark Return could be an aggressive card for him if he pulls into something else, but he needs to find a more aggressive hand than this to win against Vodacombo.
Well, Annihilate's not very good against Seraph or Reality Warden, and that's what Bradykin's working with, so double Dark Return, and I think this start may just be the end for both of us. He's not going to be able to get anything on the board, and
yeah, we
7/7 is a
see
lot.
1 point of damage, and that puts him 1 closer to victory, and that's about it. There's not really much going on here. He's got no units to play. His Dark Returns are going to get hard locked by the Reality Warden, and even then he doesn't have any units to resurrect. This is one of the risks of the Dark Return heavy deck, is that you do sometimes draw into hands that are just Dark Returns, and while they sort of count as extra creatures in most situations, or as extra units, they're not really extra units when you're looking for your first hand. So this is pretty rough, and Scorpion Wasp helps him out on defense, but not going to help him out on offense.
I imagine we see the Reality Warden here, but drawing the Martial Ironthorn makes it a little bit more questionable. Nope, elects to go for it. Scorpion Wasp's good against the Reality Warden, but not going to be enough.
Yeah, at this point, Baba Maz could like fake the option of yeah. Basically, I don't think Bradykin even needs to attack here. He's just building to the game that he wants, and Baba Maz doesn't have what he needs. The Bradykin gets to play Ironthorn into power here. That puts him at 7. He'll be able to activate Seraph after that. He could also just play a second Reality Warden.
We're going to Dark Return Chain Scorpion Wasps. That's our game plan if we're Bummalos. Unfortunately, that's not really a winning game plan, more of a stalling game plan.
Yeah, from here he can get the Wasp back just because being able to threaten something is nice. But a Scorpion Wasp is a lot less useful and your opponent knows about it, so there's not going to be a lot of action from Bradykin's side.
Bradykin cursing himself for not playing the second Reality Warden follow-up, probably. No, you.
Wasp goes down again.
And now is he going to lock it in the void? He does. All right, we'll have no more of that, says Bradykin.
Scorpion Wasp plan. Sandstorm Titan, not awful here. He gets to attack in and then Vara's favor. It's a little bit late, but at least it unlocks the void so he can play his Dark Return.
Bradykin just spoiled for options here.
Yeah, Ironthorn into Great Parliament gives him plenty of units to play. Baba Maz can attack here just to try and get the option, but that will be a 0-2.
He knows it's done. All right.
So Bradykin wraps up the game 2-0. He is going into our winner's bracket, and Baba Maz's Xenon Killers deck drops off the map.
Yeah, congratulations to Bradykin for moving on. Bottom of us, top 12. Pretty good result for his first Invitational. Not a bad showing. A little bit of an awkward hand there, and not the greatest matchup in Xenon versus Dakota combo.
Yeah, I think that overall his deck could have done a lot better. He did have some pretty bad draws there, and just generally didn't have quite what he needed. There were some issues with his sideboard just not matching up very well against Big Combre, and that is an archetype that you kind of have to pay attention to. But there's not a terribly strong answer there, and he definitely just couldn't deal with the Ironthorn Ascendant combo, which is such a strong late game powerhouse when you are playing mid range versus mid range. We are going to be looking at moving into a match. Level 13 David has just lost a round, so we might actually not have a backup match. We will see.
Lost a game, not a round. Actually, David versus
okay.
Docta is our last match remaining on the day. 7 of our 8 slots for top 8 are locked up, and we will be going over those shortly. But we are skipping into the final round, or the final match, sorry, of day 1 of the Season 4 Invitational, with Docta playing in his second ever ETS tournament for top 8 against level 13 David. Chalice versus Time Justice Primal mid-range.
Yeah, level 13 David looking at some decent options here, but he's mostly concerned about defending his own health, it looks like. Keeping the backlashes up against possible harsh rules or vanquishes. Generally just playing a fairly defensive game. In the meantime, Docta has quite a lot stacked up against him. We see the Circe the Great Glutton has entered the void, so that's not looking amazing for him, but everything else is looking pretty good.
Interesting that he didn't cast anything there. I understand not playing the Chalice because he wants to play it and use it all in one turn, but I would have expected him to play the Amber Acolyte, perhaps. Looks like he's holding up double backlash. The first one I understand, probably trying to prevent his opponent from landing stand together, but not super sure about why he's holding up both. It doesn't look like he really needs a Scorpion Wasp this turn.
Yeah, these decks are the same colors, but they're very different in style. We have the Sandstorm Titan and Dawnwalker push. We have Elysian midrange, Circe the Great Glutton doing some good work, and David just trying to set up everything that he can.
Yeah, Vanquish can take down a Sandstorm Titan pretty easily, but so too can a Scorpion Wasp. Doctus 3 power up is pretty suspicious. I can't personally see his hand, but Stand Together seems like a potential threat.
Could be very scary. We have backlashes up for a lot of options. Obviously, keeping backlash up for decay is one of the things that you really want. I
Mm-hmm.
think that David probably wants to backlash this. It seems
Yeah.
pretty unlikely that he's going to want double backlash for Stand Together here.
Even Stand Together isn't that terrible. You do have a number of things that can block. You've got a Scorpion Wasp for his Sandstorm Titan, so it's not the end of the world if it goes through.
And we see 2 plays and a full attack. I think David is correct in predicting the Stand Together. So now he has to make blocks that effectively use that. I think the options here are probably to just line up the 2-5 and the 2-1 against something, or try and defend your health against the Sandstorm Titan.
Yeah, without backlash up and without a harsh rule in hand, this Stand Together is going to be a real pain to deal with. Since even if he doesn't get like gotten, so to speak, by the Stand Together, it's going to be quite difficult for him to clear up this board, and that is a lot of units, especially since the Dawnwalkers all come back with the refreshed Aegis when they die. So
Yeah, it's a lot of small units being very, very aggressive. Stand Together prevents overwhelm damage. He kills a single token, and then the Sandstorm Titan is a 6/7. So this is
mhm.
a lot to deal with, but it's not out of the question. Marison's Disciple lines up pretty well. He can even put a Death Touch unit out if he wants to, since he's got the backlash available.
Yeah,
Um,
Doctor's only got one card in or 2 cards in hand, so maybe David isn't quite out of this yet. If he can stall the board a bit, um, the only thing he really needs to worry about is the overwhelm from the Dawnwalkers. So another unit could be problematic, but for the moment, he might actually be okay.
Marison's Disciple setting up pretty well for him. He can always vanquish the Dawnwalker when he gets a silence and pop the Aegis and then silence the whole thing. You don't want to just pop the Aegis on the Dawnwalker and then leave it alone at any point, because if it dies, it comes back with the Aegis fully refreshed. But from here, David has a lot of different options. He's looking at making a bigger Scorpion, one that is perhaps
I,
proof
I,
against death.
I don't know about this raising up the Scorpion plan. Yes, you've got a Scorpion Wasp, but wouldn't you want that to disincentivize your opponent from attacking with Sandstorm Titan?
Want to be sure that the disincentive remains on the board after a lightning storm, which I don't think that Doctor is really looking to lightning storm his own units at this point, but it's possible that that's the justification there.
So Doctor doesn't play Lightning Storm. He does play Crystallize, which would be a problem regardless of what size it is, since getting stunned for 2 turns when you've got this many units in play is basically the same as just dying.
And we see a lot of potential blocks lined up, but still a lot of damage is coming in. David has to find more ways to stabilize. Channel the Tempest will help a little bit, but it's only going to kill one of the new units without Aegises on them.
Another Stand Together would not be ideal.
Could be pretty rough for him. We didn't see a pause there, so we're pretty sure that it does not happen. But at this point, David's looking at Channel the Tempest to kill the 2-1 or to hit Docta's face. What's on the board? Pulse Prince bringing back the Dawnwalker and the second Dawnwalker. That's going to put David in a very rough spot indeed.
Well, he can permafrost the false prince, I guess, as a starting
Permafrost the
point.
False Prince, he can Channel the Tempest, he can try to lock down a couple of different units and just weather the Dawnwalkers, but I don't know if he has enough damage there. If you open with Channel, then don't really have good options because everything is going to cost at least 2, and you'll probably draw a power, but that's not going to be enough. There's just too many threats here. I believe that David is going to go down. We'll advance. We'll see if that is the case.
Still,
Temple
we
Scribe's a
got
good
some
start.
card draws. Time Sigil,
Yep, get that card
not
draw off.
quite what we're looking for. The main
It's
problem is
not.
the Dawnwalker's Overwhelm.
Yeah, he can vanquish and then permafrost a Dawnwalker.
But then you leave a False Prince around. And
Yeah, the False Prince is definitely too big of a threat. If he vanquishes the False Prince, then that gets him another 1-drop unit that's not a huge threat for him, but probably leaves him dead to Dawnwalkers on board.
if he had previously hit Harsh Rule off of that draw, he would have been able to survive. Just Harsh Rule the board, Vanquish, and Vanquish and Permafrost to stabilize, and he would have taken 4. But without that, I think he's going to die.
Yeah, a lot of good blockers here. 1 or 2 potential vanquishes. A lot. He could vanquish the False Prince, permafrost the 2/1, and then just block with as many units as humanly possible. But it's going to be rough either way.
He's just trying to figure out his outs, and I think that extra Dawnwalker was just a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's a pretty rough deal. Vanquish plus Permafrost is really all he can play. He could exhaust the Temple Scribe to try and draw 1 more card, but... Okay, he does go for this line, and I believe this might keep him alive for 1 turn while he tries to draw like a Harsh Rule. But
I
it's
think there's
hard to
just
say for
too many
sure.
units.
The minimum amount of damage he can take. 10 damage on the Dawnwalkers, all blocked by what you've got. 6, 7, 8 you have, so you take 2 regardless, plus 4, plus 2. Yeah, that's lethal.
Yeah.
No way to mitigate that damage in a meaningful fashion.
Oh,
Wait,
actually,
no. 3
I think this
here,
puts
and then
him
he
to 1.
blocks. Yeah. 1 damage, and he does get to channel
Okay,
here. I think
so does Doctor
he might
have
be
anything?
stabilized.
Well, we didn't stabilize because we need something to kill that 2/2 that has Aegis.
Ombre Healer would do it.
Yeah. Nope. Not quite. And David's dead.
Yep, that is the game. He played the best he could. He did find the way to live for 1 extra turn, but unfortunately, Doctor's deck just had a little bit more stuff to it, and
Channel
that
the
knocks.
Tempest. Maybe stronger than a frog, but it wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, it's a pretty difficult deck for defending yourself if you're not running the great parliaments there, and as a result, just ended up getting a little bit knocked out by those Dawnwalkers. So, good value from Docta, and Docta moves on to the top 8, and that is, I believe, the last of our games for this evening.
All right, so let's take a look at the bracket because there were matches that you did not see. So we just saw Doctor moving on to top 8 in his very first Invitational, defeating level 13 David. Flash 2351 fell to Tiger HC 2-0. So Tiger moves on. Congratulations to him. We watched Bradykin take down Babamavus and move on. Represent Seek Power Gaming in the top 8. And finally, at the bottom of the bracket, two highly seeded players facing off, Sarius versus Sir Rhino. Sir Rhino did end up defeating Sarius 2-0 and moving on to top 8.
Yeah, very powerful plays from everyone, and very solid setup overall.
So they will join Angry Chicken, Alunix, Child Roland, and Tabu in the top 8. Speaking of top 8, let's look over at the top 8 predictions that we made. With myself making out a little bit better than I did last time, successfully predicting Child Roland, Angry Chicken, and Sir Rhino. Actually, all of us predicted Child Roland and Sir Rhino, and all of us were successful, with the only other successful prediction being Lights Out Aces, Angry Chicken. Okay, so maybe we weren't that impressive. Rekenner did not believe, and he fell down to 2 and 8. But none of our pocket picks worked out, and the majority of our mid-tier picks were unsuccessful. So A little bit worse than last week for other people, a little bit better than last time for me. Overall, worse than guessing.
Oh,
Moving
I
now to
didn't submit any, so I get to say all of mine were right.
yeah, you predicted this entire bracket actually. Uh, so looking now at team performance, Team Elder Titans with that loss by V-Series has been entirely eliminated from the tournament with a 7-5 record. VPX has one member remaining, Ilunix, who's in good shape, sitting up in the upper bracket at 3-0. Team Seek Power Gaming has two members, which is the most of any team. Child Roland also sitting pretty, 3-0, and Bradykin fought his way back into losers bracket round 5, where he'll face off against Sir Rhino. Team BS may have only submitted 3 members, but one of them, Tiger HC, is also still alive at 3-1 in losers bracket round 5.
Yeah, looks like everybody has at least one champion left in their team, but none of the teams did particularly well for themselves. Nobody got more than one person inside, so the Chalice deck fell completely off the map, it looks like.
Well, only 8 players can make it in, so it's very difficult for a team like VPX to take all 8 spots, especially since we saw lots of matchups like V-Serious faced off against teammate Manus in round 2 and stuff like that. So very difficult to put multiple team members in. Congratulations to XBG for managing to do so with one of the best overall win rates as well. We'll have to see how those guys do on day 2. I'm sure their team will be cheering for them. That is all that we have for today, though. Match-wise, I believe we are doing our sign-off. So a big thank you to all you guys who came out today to watch. A big thank you, of course, to LocoPojo here next to me for agreeing to cast this event. I know you'd rather be playing, but it's good to have you here.
No, yeah, it's a delight.
So thanks, of course, to Rekenner, who writes all the stuff and does all the organization behind the scenes and just basically makes these move as smoothly as possible. Huge thanks to him. Also, a big thanks to our producer, Miller Tool, for doing the actual stream of the events. I understand that we've had a pretty smooth stream today, and I hope you guys have had a lot of fun, so thanks to him for that. Our graphics were made by a number of people who we'd all like to thank. Just off the top of my head, I know that Dragonfly, Xkirby, Zariah, and Sir Rhino were all involved in a variety of our graphics. And a thanks to Mengar for the deck image tool that you guys see in between rounds, as well as our tiebreak script for the weekly tournaments. I'm supposed to thank the founder and organizer of aReNGee Eternal here, which happens to be me. So thank you to me for being here. And thank you to our Patreon donators. We talked about this before. It's the Patreon that keeps us going and helps us get through the difficulties of scrounging up some prize money for these guys to keep people interested in moving in through. So a big thank you to our $20 donators: Chuck Hurst, Sean Kim, Heichison, Christopher Brisby, Mark McManus Jr., Greg Rouse Emery, and Ezed Iwa. Easy. Oh, and Seek Power Gaming, who are our newest $20 donators, so new that they're not even on this form that I have, for which I will blame Rekenner. So a big thank you to everybody else involved. Anyone we didn't mention, I'm terribly sorry, but thank you for that. And we will be back tomorrow at noon for day 2. We're not anywhere near done yet, so be sure that all of you guys come back for that.
That should be a blast.
LocoPojo, you want to plug yourself before we go?
Oh, sure. Yeah. If you guys want to follow my stream, it is twitch.tv/LocoPojo. We play all sorts of different types of decks on that setup. Right now, we're doing the Spellslinger Challenge for the current event. I stream Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. PST with Wednesdays off. I am also, probably after a nice long lunch break, gonna stream a little bit today. And no promises yet, guys, but we might have something special for you on Tuesday. So be sure to tune in then, and hopefully something cool will happen. In the meantime, I am LocoPojo, and I will be back tomorrow with our host, aReNGee.
Yes, and if you want to see more of us playing, besides just the regular tournament series, which goes on every Saturday, and some Sundays. Be sure to check out the aReNGee Eternal Streaming Network, where you can see myself streaming on Tuesdays. I'm sure that's something special that LocoPojo was talking about, as well as our producer Miller Tool on Mondays and Lights Out Ace throughout the week. So be sure to check that out. Thank you all so much for coming out. This has been day 1 of the Season 4 Invitational.
See you later, guys. Have a really good night.